And I'd like to say thanks to the band that performed before. Sorry, I'll just do the test again. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic test.
Mine
okay, correct. Mic test. Mic test, 1, 2, 1.
Hi Dini, who is doing live stream?
Good job. Testing, 1, 2, 1. Okay. Mic test. Mic test, 1, 2, 1.
Hi Dini, who is doing live stream?
1, 2, 1. Testing, 1, 2, 1. Mic test, 1, 2, 1.
Hi Dini, who is doing live stream?
1, 2, 1. Testing, 1, 2, 1. Mic test, 1, 2, 1. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Alright.
Hi Dini, who is doing live stream?
Good afternoon, my name is Susie, and I am a colleague of the Center for Independent Journalism. Today, I represent 9 organizations working on freedom of expression in Malaysia. Thank you for joining us today. These 9 organizations are Center for Independent Journalism, Freedom Film Network, Peace Network, Kasina Kuala, Sisters in Islam, Gerakan Media Malaysia, Gerakan Bersuara. Today I represent 9 organizations. I'm honored to for that these are civil society organizations are working in and our organizations are right to information to get more as well as central. We have gathered here today to organize and celebrate rights and human rights in conjunction with Human Rights Day in one prayer festival. So we are here today and we are hoping to get more people to come and join us in our exhibition. Our theme today is humanizing human rights. In Bahasa Melayu, it's called mengetengahkan Hak Asasi Manusia. And with this theme, we hope and aim to remind people that human rights are inherent. With me on the panel today are my colleagues. I'll start from my right, Vachila Naidu, Executive Director of Center for Independent Journalism. And besides Vachila is also another colleague of mine, Salim Lim from Safe Rivers. Safe Rivers is a CSO based in Sarawak, working with indigenous communities in Sarawak. Welcome, Salim. Thank you for joining us today. We also have Firdaus Husni, Chief Human Rights Strategist of Malaysian Center for Constitutionalism and Human Rights, MCCHR. Thank you, Firdaus, for joining us. And we have my colleague whom I have had the extreme pleasure of working with for the past 1 year. But this is the first time I'm meeting him in person after countless Zoom meetings. So Sheridan Mahavira, thank you for joining us today as well. Sheridan is Senior Program Officer with Freedom Film Network, and he will be speaking a little bit about censorship today. With that, I'd like to invite Firdaus Husni to read out our press statement. For members of the press who are here today physically, thank you for joining us. We apologize that a lot of you have chosen to join us online because we had a time shift for that. We are quite sorry, but we are here today until 6 p.m. and you are free to join us anytime. And if you have questions, you can raise them. This press conference is streaming live on Facebook, on CIJ's Facebook. So if you have any questions, put them in comments and my colleagues will highlight it to us and we will be able to answer your questions online. Thank you. May I invite Firdaus to read out our press statement for today.
Thank you, Tosi. You all can hear me fine, yeah? Alright, good. So, my name is Firdaus Husni. I will be reading out the press statement in conjunction with the launch of International Human Rights Day 2021 and the Freedom of Expression (FOE) Status Report 2021. In 2021, Malaysians battled not just a spike of the new COVID-19 infection and the economic hardships that came with longer lockdowns, but also a sharp increase in individuals and groups being persecuted by oppressive laws for their criticism of those in power. Civil society organizations saw that laws such as the Sedition Act, the Communications and Multimedia Act were used to silence dissent, while our fundamental human rights were suspended or derogated in the name of navigating new waves of COVID-19 cases. Today, 9 organizations, which Lucy have mentioned earlier, working on freedom of expression came together to co-organize the International Human Rights Day 2021 in celebration to draw attention to some of the problems affecting human rights this year and to advocate for real change going forward into the year 2022. Humanizing human rights or merakyatkan hak asasi manusia in bahasa Malaysia. This event was led by CIJ, Centre for Independent Journalism, co-organized by Article 19 Malaysia, Freedom Film Network, FFN, CRIS Network, Singa Project, Sisters in Islam, SIS, Gerakan Media Merdeka, Suara Rakyat Malaysia, and MCCHR, Malaysian Centre for Constitutionalism and Human Rights. Today's platform is to remind us that human rights are inherent and permeate all facets of life. We aim to humanize human rights so it is not perceived as an abstract concept, not relatable to ordinary people. The event lineup today features a photo exhibition in collaboration with 2 different groups. One, The Belief, a national photojournalist group, and Eyes That Speak by Buku Jalanan Chalkit. So you can check out the exhibition right around this area. And further to that, to symbolize the right to speech, expression and opinion, we have a lineup of performances, which is also important to reflect inclusivity and that all communities should be respected. These performances include Malaysian poet Kian Habib, Davisa Zainal Pavitra Sambu, Kinchi, Wani Ardi and Shamsat, a refugee from Pakistan. We also have Narayani Balasubramaniam, Santosh Logandran and Sri Surya Prakash, who earlier serenaded us with live music. Last but not least, we are also exhibiting women's voices from CRIS Network 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. In an increasingly shrinking democratic state, civil society organizations working on freedom of expression are here to claim that democratic spaces and to remind Malaysians and all alike that the freedom to express is the cornerstone to democracy and the exercise of all rights. Choosing to platform the work of photojournalists, live performances of local artists symbolize the importance of having a free media, the power of images in journalism, and the role information plays in the socio-political context of the country. It is also a testament to how rights are respected in this country. The exhibition of women's voices is also an important reminder that freedom of expression and gender equality is mutually reinforcing. It is a celebration of women who have been speaking up and love against power, against patriarchy. Today also saw the release of CIJ report, I will talk more about that. CIJ's report on the state of freedom of expression in Malaysia in 2021, which documents cases of how problematic laws were used to curtail the right to speak, expression and assembly, both online and offline. Now going into the year 2022, we urge members of parliament and policymakers to repeal and review laws that prevent us from exercising our fundamental rights. These laws include the Sedition Act 1948, the Official Secrets Act, the Printing, Presses and Publications Act, the PPA, the Official Secrets Act, the OSA. All these should be repealed, while Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act, the Film Censorship Act 2002 and the Finance Act 1981 must be reviewed and amended. We also urge the Malaysian government to, number one, promote transparency and access to open data by enacting the right to information legislation. Number two, promote media freedom by setting up an independent and self-regulated media council. It must stop arbitrary censorship in any form of expression by any group. Thirdly, anti-intimidation and harassment of civil society organizations, of journalists and members of the public who question the authorities in an attempt to hold them accountable. And lastly, to adopt specific policies and appropriate measurements to protect and promote women's freedom of expression, including elimination of online gender-based violence, gender stereotypes, negative social norms, and discriminatory attitudes. In the spirit of International Human Rights Day, we also urge the Malaysian government to commit to developing a roadmap towards ratification of international human rights treaties, in particular the ICCPR, that's the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, that's the ICSCR, among others. These statements are endorsed by CSOs, which are Centre for Independent Journalism, Freedom Film Network, Press Network, Sisters in Islam, Suara Rakyat Malaysia, Forum, Gerakan Media Merdeka, Geram, and Sila Project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kedawa. Next, I would like to invite Vakshila Naidu, Executive Director for Centre for Independent Journalism, to launch the FOE, Freedom of Expression Status Report 2021.
Thank you, Tulsi. Thank you everyone for being here. Very good afternoon to all. In conjunction with the International Human Rights Day 2021, we are happy to virtually launch our Freedom of Expression Status Report today. The report provides a general overview of the state of freedom of expression in Malaysia this year. It illustrates how external factors such as COVID-19 and a nationwide emergency played a significant role in undermining our FOE this year. It also includes certain thematic policy observations, analysis, recommendations for the state to consider to better protect and uphold our fundamental human rights. I want to add a disclaimer that the data and statistics that are presented in our report were computed from CIJ's monitoring of online media reports and may not necessarily include every case under the laws that we've been monitoring. So as such, some of the data may vary from the government statistics or data from other human rights organizations. We also want to note that this exhaustive list that we have in the report is not necessarily exhaustive enough because it doesn't fully cover all other individuals who have been probed or charged under different security laws or gender and sexuality related laws. So, however, what we know is that these cases can be seen as part of a larger, deliberate and concerted series of actions intended to stifle our fundamental freedoms. We have observed through our monitoring both pandemic and vaccination-related posting or sentiments that were skeptical, brazen, critical, dissenting and satirical, but all of these which we consider valid forms of expression, as well as other more serious violations such as making provable false claims, threats to another's life, security or well-being, and also incidences of hate speech. We strongly believe that in some of these cases, it did not really warrant investigation, and some actions by the state were disproportionate, excessive in maintaining public order or peace. We base this analysis on our understanding of the scope of the various laws used. Laws are laws which are largely restrictive and oppressive in nature and often blur the lines between right and wrong and do not take into account factors like intent and proportionality. This then gives rise to the potential for misuse and abuse of power from the state when all manner of criticism can be regarded as seditious or fake news, for instance, and this of course leads to further shrinking of our democratic spaces. This is very clear when we look at the number of cases in 2021 in comparison with 2022 and 2 years preceding that. Throughout 2021, CIJ observed and monitored a sharp increase in the usage of oppressive legislation such as the Sedation Act. We monitored and documented 19 cases. There were 140 cases under Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act aimed at silencing dissenting opinions and expressions online. We also saw a rise in the use of Penal Code Sections 504 and 505, which respectively had 32 and 35 cases. On an average, we also noted that there were more men than women who were being implicated. We also noted with regard to age that there were cases involving almost all age groups from teenagers and youngsters below 25, adults up to 50, and senior citizens even up to late 60s. So it shows the full extent of the use of state instruments. We also noted arrests, interrogations and investigations which were not just predominantly focused in KL, but also in various parts of the country, including rural areas. There are a few categories of persons were specifically targeted. We note an increase in targets against human rights defenders. We all can recall how activists were being investigated for attending peaceful solidarity meets, and including those who attended the Book of Parliament gatherings, those who attended the various Lawan initiatives, as well as activists who were hauled in for questioning over the Labour Day gathering, amongst others. We also note with very serious concern the attacks and investigations against artists, including graphic designers, filmmakers, illustrators, and cartoonists. And, I'm sure Sheridan will talk about his own experiences of how FFN and artist Amin Landa were hauled in for questioning at Bukit Aman, and subsequently their offices and homes raided as well. Let's not forget Fahmi Reza and Zunar, who continue to be targeted for their work. Media and media environment continue to be restricted. In February, we saw the infamous federal court ruling that found Malaysia Kini guilty of contempt of court and fined 500,000 ringgit. Now, this decision posed multiple implications for media, online portals in particular. Then we also saw the deterioration in the annual Reporters Without Borders Annual Press Freedom Index in Malaysia, where we moved down 18 places to position 119 out of 180 countries. As was the case last year, media continued to experience restrictions with regards to access to Parliament and official high-level briefings by senior ministers. We know that often most of these briefings are mainly restricted to official state-owned media. Alarmingly, this year we saw an increase in media professionals coming under investigation merely on the basis of articles that they had published. We know that politicians, mainly opposition politicians, were also targeted. There was investigation of politicians who had gathered outside Parliament and a call to open Parliament. We also note other professionals, including doctors, through the Hartal Doctor protest, who were targeted. Our concern for 2021 is the fact that we have seen also a dramatic increase in the number of netizens who were being targeted at opposed or in comparison to previous years. Now you'll be able to see more specific details of these cases in the report, which will be available online today. We hope that the launch of this report will lead to more public awareness surrounding the state of FOE in Malaysia. It must challenge our own preconceived ideas of speech, freedom and expression, and as public, as citizens of Malaysia, as those living in Malaysia, we must demand for change from the state. We also hope and strongly urge the government to seriously consider the recommendations we have included, not just in our report, but as what was shared by Firdaus earlier, which is a recommendation by a number of organizations working on freedom of expression here in Malaysia, and commit towards the reforms we had suggested. We stand ready to work with the government to push these reforms through. Yeah. Let me, however, end on a positive note, so it's not all, doom and gloom. Yesterday, in conjunction with the International Human Rights Day, the Minister Wan Junaidi had reiterated the government's commitment towards adopting a new legislation on right to information in a move to promote transparency and open data. That we see as a positive move ahead. And thank you very much for being here with us. And we're happy to discuss the report more if you have further questions. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Vatsala. I'm also very happy to hear what Wan Junaidi had to say yesterday, and I'm looking forward to seeing how CSO members work towards that direction as well. If I may invite Sheridan to say a few words. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tosi. I thought you've heard enough from me already today, so kita nak beri peluang kepada orang lain. Tapi I want to keep this short kerana pun saya nak beri peluang pada ahli panel yang lain. Tadi seperti yang terima kasih kepada Wachala kerana dia sebut tentang Freedom Film Network dan case Freedom Film Network yang paling terbesar tahun ini. The biggest incident that we have faced so far when it comes to freedom of expression and especially on the internet. Kerana kalau kebiasaannya, we think that because the government has committed before to not censoring the internet, so we felt that the internet is a safe space, that it could be a platform from which we could publish work, especially films, that may not necessarily be approved by the current Film Censorship Act. So in July, together with Suara and Missy Solidarity and cartoonist Amir Landak, I don't know if he's here, but we have put up a video called Chili Powder and Thinner, and we have also organized a talk online about cases of police brutality. And this came after a series of deaths in police custody. So after we had done the after we had finished the event, my colleague and Aha was called up by the police. Our friends, Stephen Doraisami, the panelists, Sharon from DC Solidarity, Amin Landa, we were all called up by the police who wanted to know, what was the purpose of doing the video, because the video was about an alleged case, or a real alleged case of police torture in 2018. Yeah. So we felt that was, from our point of view, we felt that was also a form of censorship, even though it wasn't under the Film Censorship Act. This was a case that was under the CIJ, which is 233, for improper use of network facilities. And we felt that this was a form of intimidation and harassment to us, and an attempt to silence us. Even though, the government had, at least the Malaysian government had at least committed to not censoring freedom of speech agreement expression on the internet. So, our colleagues were called in for questioning, our office was raided, but the case hasn't gone through yet. But that so far is, I'd say, one of the biggest incidents so far this year. I'd like to also, if you like more details on this, I can share with you later. But I'd also like to point out that there was also another case involving this film called Barbie. This was an interesting film, and this it doesn't fall under the Film Censorship Act, but it falls under the Film Development Act. And this was a film that, sorry, just to give you some background, under the Finance Act, if you want to create a video that is supposed to be produced, that is supposed to be streamed and distributed in Malaysia, you actually have to apply for a license from the film. That's what the law says. It doesn't matter if you want to distribute this online, it doesn't matter if you want to screen in cinema, as long as you want to produce a video, it could be a Twitch stream. Kan, saya ni orang nama orang tua sikit tapi tak faham apa Twitch, tapi some of the youngsters say no, if you want to produce a Twitch stream, if you want to produce a TikTok video, so you have to essentially apply for a license under this act. Now the person who was prosecuted, the producer told the police, we're not producing a video that is meant for distribution or even streaming in Malaysia. It's supposed to go overseas, but of course, somehow or other he was still called in and he was charged in court. Yeah? So those are the two cases. And I'd just like to say that, in all these incidents of censorship, we somehow coincided, it also coincided with Freedom Film Network's launch, or official launch, of Bebaskan Film Mengetengahkan Minda Rakyat, which is liberate films and liberate the minds of society, because we want to start a movement to basically change the film censorship laws right now. Because through our own research and through our own experience in the Freedom Film Network, we find that, this whole, when we talk about human rights, when we talk about gender equality, all the things that are important to us, all these principles, freedom of expression, somehow it doesn't get transferred or doesn't get accepted into mainstream Malaysia. And we feel that the reason is because we have this act. It's a very pernicious act, and because mainstream Malaysia does not see adequate representation of these principles on the silver screen. So so the thing is, it's like we have launched this campaign. It's probably going to be a long one, and we hope to build a groundswell and to advocate to the government that, look, these acts need to be reviewed, amended, not just for the sake of the film industry, but also for the sake of creating a mature, critical Malaysian society. So thank you, that's it from me. Pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan. Thank you very much. And that was a very impressive highlight of events in the past 1 year for FFN, yeah? And I also relate to the violations that you faced in FFN, and while we were also involved in campaigning at that time for Anna and FFN. Next, I would like to highlight a little bit about Celine. Celine is from Safe Rivers, and the intention behind inviting Safe Rivers and Celine to platform today is to highlight that freedom of expression is a facet that factors in all aspects of human rights advocacy and lobbying. I think what Safe Rivers face is a threat to expression, and we have been commonly advocating for expression, freedom of expression, and mostly the cases we deal with are violations by the state. But today we would like to also highlight that public sector violations are an important integral part, but private sector violations are also taking place. And that is also an ambit we'd like to cover and highlight. And maybe I'll pass to Celine to speak a little bit about how we came about together to assist you and what Safe Rivers face in essence.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Celine. I come all the way from Sarawak this afternoon to just be with you. But I was invited here to tell a little bit of a story. I actually really like your thematic. It's humanizing human rights. And the thing here is I wanted to really focus on that because the story that I'm going to tell is really human-based, human-centric. So I thought I'll just give you a little bit of a context of the work that we do. So Safe Rivers specifically focus on an area called Baram. It is a wonderful, pristine rainforest area that has been a place of residence, a place of living for the indigenous people for ages. So it is lands that have been passed down from ancestors to ancestors, from generation to generation. So these are people that have been living in that area for ages. So Safe Rivers have been working with them, walking with them for the past 10 years in regards to anything that involves their land rights, their community rights. So currently, what we have been doing, we have been working with specifically these communities that are based in an area called Gerenai. So Gerenai, a forest management unit. So that's the area, and it is made out of at least 30 villages, and it comes from we have ethnicity or indigenous group. They come from Kenya. You have the Saban. You even have the nomadic, the original nomadic tribes living in that area. So one of the things that they have brought up all through these years is how come lands that they know that belongs to them, everybody knows that belongs to them. One day they found out that it has been approved for development project. It has been approved for logging activities. So these were the questions and the struggle that they brought up. They came to us because we had a platform, or we were connecting them to the system at B. So one of the things that we did was report it on our portal, on our website, that is saferivers.org. So we have been reporting that for the past, I don't know, like 5-6 years. But this year, we received a defamation lawsuit from the logging company stating that what we did, reporting the struggles, reporting the stories, were defamation. So that's what we're facing at the moment. And I wanted to talk about how it is, and just a little bit of more context. It is not just Safe Rivers, the organization that's being sued. Our 4 main directors personally are also named within that suit. So this is where we're at this moment, and gearing up to the court proceeding, which is going to be next year. So we are standing on our stories, we are standing on our narrative, because what we did was really just bring up the expression of the people onto our portal. So this is where we are at, and we do see this as a part of a strategic litigation against public participation. So that's where we are at. And I also wanted to add, I guess going through this lawsuit has also somehow forced us to be more, what's the word here, to be more networking. So I am standing here, or I'm sitting here today because we have collaborated with all the different CSOs and NGOs in Malaysia that have really rallied together with us. These past few months of confusion
this past few months of just trying to understand where they're coming from in their lawsuit has been so much more comforting because of the solidarity and also the alliance. So I think this is where we are at today, and I think even what Tulsi has mentioned, being part of this alliance has also allowed us to tap into legal defense funding that is helping us to prepare for whatever that's going to happen next year. So I guess this is probably the context of why we're here and what we're doing together with you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Selena. That was a wonderful way of explaining how it all went about. Perhaps I can share a little bit more about the Legal Defense Fund under the Freedom of Expression group of civil society with a common interest. We had launched this fund last year, exactly a year ago. In fact, it was our 2020 International Human Rights Day press conference, which we did together, and we also featured one of our applicants at that point in time, Won Youngker, and today we are happy to feature Safe Rivers as another applicant. And Legal Defense Fund is open to public. We would like to remind people that this fund is available to members of the public, civil society organizations included. If you face a threat in relation to your right to express, then you are free to contact us, and we will see what kind of legal support we can provide you. We have a team working on board. All 12 organizations are stakeholders here at equally responsible for the fund, and it's been quite interesting to see how the fund has been able to help a group of people in Malaysia. We've managed to help members of the public. I'm not going to reveal their names today, but we have indeed managed to help ordinary members of the public facing threats from the government, from police, simply for posting what they think online. So I think that's an important feature that the group of civil society has been working on. If you have questions, members of the media, I invite you to raise your questions now, and we will be happy to take them. Okay, I guess we will we will close for now, and we will be here until 6 p.m. So members of the media who are joining us later, you're most welcome to seek us out, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, friends, and thank you, comrades.
Okay, hai. Terima kasih ya. Balik pada saya pula, kerana saya ni pula tiba-tiba dijadikan MC untuk kali kedua. Patutnya kita ambil giliran ni. Anyway, so our next event is at 2 p.m. Kan itu adalah apa persembahan kita kedua. So kita akan mula sign up untuk acara tersebut, dan kita